I am. I have been in the field of education for the past 13 years. I have a 5-year-old son whom I homeschool as of now. Um, I say as of now because I don't think I am the only one who decides whether he should learn in a school or from the world at large. I think he has a say in it too. So, like I said, as of now, I'm homeschooling my son. So there are many people who ask me what my son does, and when I tell them that I homeschool my son, I get varying responses. I'm sure Arun Kumar and Sujata must also be getting is, what? Are you really homeschooling? And the second thing is, oh, your son is below 5. That's not even homeschooling. But for those who tell me that below 5 is not homeschooling necessarily, only if after 7 your son is at home it's homeschooling. I have to tell those people that I have been asked uh, which school my son goes to from when he was 2.5 years old, so I think I qualify as a homeschooler. The other questions that come up are I'm sure you will put him in school in a year or two, right? To which my answer is no, most likely not. If it were my choice, no. Then another question is like, you're in the field of education, you have the skills to homeschool your child. I can't do it. You know, I'm not a teacher, but I'm not a teacher either. I am a curriculum designer, not an academician in any way. So, yes, of course, my field does give me some interesting perspectives into how children learn, but not necessarily any idea of what is calculus or how to calculate speed or any such thing, or who was Genghis Khan or anything like that. Then there are questions of things like, oh, you know what? My child is not like yours. Yours would probably sit with you and study and listen to you, but my child doesn't do that. Quick answer: every child is like that. I don't think there is any child in this generation who listens to parents and sits and studies. But I think there is definitely something for us to learn from these children who readily learn fantastic new skills, complex rules and games, and create their own stories when left free, but do not want to sit and study. There must be something to it. I mean, why are they able to learn so much of that, but not learn the basics of mathematics when we sit and teach it to them? Um, yes, that is my answer to my child is not like yours. He would never sit and study. Then there are some others who are telling me accusatory, I mean, in an accusatory manner, that is it fair to homeschool your child when you want to work? That always reminds me of this uncle whom I met when my son was just learning to walk, and I believe that he should walk barefoot so that he is much closer to earth. He experiences, I mean, he feels the earth below him, and I believe that that will help him to walk better. And so I would never let him wear shoes. And I remember meeting one random person on the park, this uncle who said, how unfair is this? You are wearing shoes, but your child isn't. Don't you have the money to get him a pair of shoes at least? And he just said that, and he was walking past me. He said that, and he walked past me. So yes, this question seems a little like that. Is it fair to homeschool your child when you want to work? Uh, I think, I mean, since that is the most important question that we are trying to answer in this session, I will take that first. And if we break down that question, I think it translates to who will teach your child if you are going to be busy working. Uh, is everybody able to hear me now? Badri, Narayan, and Radhika tell me that there is a lot of fluctuation and not clear, inaudible. Can you hear me? Malar, Kavya, somebody? Hello? Radhika, can you hear me now? Okay, okay. I think it's a little better now. I am sorry, but this is
Deepa, you're clear actually.
okay.
I think, yeah.
Okay, yes. Okay. So as I was saying, the question of is it fair to homeschool my child when I want to work can translate itself into who will teach your child if you are busy working. Uh, to answer that question, I think there are two other questions that I would like to dwell on. One being, why do I work at all? And two being, why do I homeschool? So today, why I homeschool? Um, Homeschooling is a spectrum from though some of us who um, want to keep the child at home and teach all that is taught in school, from ABCDs uh, to having the book with us and making them complete worksheets and whatever the curriculum suggests, whatever the child is supposed to learn in class 1, class 2, class 5, class 8, class 10, all of that is covered. The difference is in the space. I don't cover it in school. I cover the entire curriculum at home. That is one um, one side of homeschoolers. Then there is the other extreme of of radical homeschooling, where the thought of the belief that my child can learn, it is a matter of the child's choice and it's not my choice. Uh, so the extreme belief in the child making decisions, the child making choices, and the child learning on his own, with yes, a lot of facilitation. Wherever I am required, I am ready to offer my help for the child. That is another end of the homeschooling spectrum. I don't know where I am in the spectrum. Uh, I'm somewhere there. But I think some light on why I am choosing to let my child stay at home without going to school can help uh, put me in any part of the spectrum. So when I try to define as to why I want to homeschool my child, some of my whatever my experiences of these 13 years um, made me think of uh, my beliefs on learning. What do I believe is learning? How do I believe learning happens? The first thought is that I don't think learning can be confined to a particular space alone. It is like, say, I'm sorry if it hurts any sentiments, but it's like saying you will find God in the place of worship only. Uh, it's a matter of belief, it's a matter of thought process as to uh, I think learning can happen anywhere. So, and I think there needs to be a clarity on learning from the space, from the ambience, is different from learning with books in any given ambience. So,
Deepa, sorry to interrupt. We can hear your voice. It's fluctuating throughout. Meaning, sometimes it goes down and we can't even hear the word what exactly you are referring.
sorry, I really don't know what to do. Um,
Deepa, are you using your headphones?
yes, I am.
Okay.
Deepa, last time did you use your headphones in
I
the
did.
panta? Okay.
I did. Is it better now? Because my signal shows full signal.
Yeah, better when we, but okay, you can continue, Deepa.
Can I do the same thing I did last time? Can I go out and log in through
Yeah,
using
log
my
in.
mobile?
Yeah, that will be better, I feel.
Yes, Kavya. So I'll just be back in a minute, all of you. Give me just a minute.
Hi, is this better now?
Yes, it's better.
Fantastic. Okay, so I don't know how much of what I was saying was heard very well. So I was saying what my learning from the 13 years taught me about learning in children or in anybody for that matter. One, like I mentioned, was learning cannot be restricted or confined to a given space. Um, Learning from the space around you, from the world around you, is different from learning with a book in a world. I mean, in a very structured learning with a book within four walls. I think it makes a world of a difference. My second idea about learning is I believe that every child decides and defines his own pace of learning and trajectory of learning. Meaning he decides how fast or slow he can learn and what he has to learn, which I feel will happen only in a free to learn environment. For example, the child may simply not understand the basics of um, the basics of uh, yeah actually this is one of my examples that I used to give when my son was born, and I started reading out to him when he was 6 months old because I simply love books, and I believe that if I read a lot of books to him, he will also fall in love with books. And we had this book on animals, and the first picture in the book was a deer. Then there was elephant, whale, blah blah blah, and this was at 6 months old, 6 months, 7, 8 months maximum. And by 1.5 years old, he was able to talk decently well, and he would name all the animals in the book except deer. Deer was something that never got into his mind. And I don't know why, because every time I would sit and harp on, this is deer, remember, I told you, remember, I told you. And it just wouldn't get in, and it just wouldn't be there in his, be retained in his mind. And that's when, and one day somebody was telling him the story of Ramayana, and there is a deer that comes in the story whom Sita chases and all. And so when he heard, after he heard that story, and at some point of time, we were browsing through the book, and when I told him that this is a deer again for the 100th time, and he was like, "Hey, is this the same deer that came in the Ramayana? Is it like that deer?" And I was like, "Yes, who? I don't know who told you Ramayana, but yes, it's the same deer." And something clicked for him. And he remembered after that, there was no not remembering deer. There was always a time when he would remember deer. So there was something that clicked at some point of time. And so he defined his pace of learning. It didn't matter if I kept banging my head on the wall trying to teach him that this is a deer. It was just he learned when he chose to learn it. Uh, uh, so that is something that I believe, there is a learning pace for every child, and the child chooses to learn when he wants to learn, or what he wants to learn. And that can happen only when there is a, you can learn when you want to learn, I'm letting you do that, or you have that kind of atmosphere. Only in that sort of an environment that happens. So that is another reason, that is another belief that I have in learning, with respect to learning. The third belief is, I think learning happens naturally when interest is triggered. I am, or when there is a motivation, valid motivation. I think it's the same for all of us. There are, I am somebody who doesn't read newspapers at all, but there were, the pandemic somehow got me interested in newspapers, and interested in politics, and interested in understanding what sort of information comes in the newspaper, what are the politicians actually doing, what are the issues that are happening, which is like a big learning process for me. For me, who is somebody who keeps away from newspaper, and with the belief that I don't understand politics. So it's a natural thing. There is something that triggered this learning, which was maybe the pandemic, with the numbers rising or whatever, of different people saying different opinions, and I wanted to know a little more about opinion. It could have been anything, but there was some point of interest that triggered my yearning to learn. Um, it's either the interest, or there is a motivation of, okay, I would like to discuss this with somebody, or something like that. So these are some of my core beliefs about learning. One is that learning cannot happen in a particular given place only. Another is that the child, every person defines their own pace and trajectory of learning, and learning happens naturally. So if with these beliefs, naturally it rules out spaces of learning where, there is structure for learning for children in my child's age, and not learning when, and the learning is not structured to my child, because if it is for children of my child's age, then it means it is for everybody, and it caters to the belief that everybody learns at the same pace. So that is ruled out. A space where everybody learns together is ruled out, at the same pace is ruled out. Second, a space where competition is the only means of motivation is ruled out, because I believe motivation or interest is individual, and what motivates or interests you is different from what motivates or interests me. Third, it rules out a space which says learning happens here and in this way only, because that means that my child is not in a free to learn environment. So all of this naturally ruled out uh, traditional schooling for as an option for my child. And this of course with many other things led me to homeschool my child. So now the question of why I work, simply put, I work for my sanity, because I think I need to, a lot of my sense of purpose, uh, my enjoyment, interest, everything is related to work as well. So for sanity, to pursue my interests, to continue learning after, uh, in different places or in, wherever I think work helps you to continue learning. And lastly, I also believe I work to help my child better through the learnings that I have from work. Um, and this learning could simply be an interaction with a peer, an interaction on something. See, in my case, it is probably because I'm in the field of education, there is an interaction that happens focused on education itself. But I have been in places where I was not, where education was not the core aspect of the organization. Or let me take my interaction with a marketing person or something could also trigger aspects of learning, which I feel helps me uh, help my child better. So if you see, I think work is a good thing when homeschooling children, because I believe it is. Um, like I said, I believe the better, more I learn, the more uh, the more occupied that I am with following my passion, my child learns all of that. And in this context, there is this key question of how will I teach my child if I am working? Homeschooling, according to me, is more a mindset that defines a way of life. It is what I think of learning rather than what rather than teaching. So when you ask me how I teach, I don't teach at all. Many times, of course, I figure out, I learn, explore, and experiment, do different things with my child. I'll tell you an example. So I am decently good at languages. Other than that, academically, I am not great at, like I said, mathematics or physics or chemistry or anything of that sort. So, in fact, I have, to honestly put, I have issues with basic mathematics. Um, in this morning, we were reading a book called Zero, and I think A Place for Zero was the name of the book. And it had words like integers, factors, and I was as clueless as my son about what those meant. So this happened, and my son asked me, "What does all this mean?" I said, "I have no idea. Let us find out." And I went to some website. I read whatever I had. I read. I asked uh, my family members, who are definitely way better than me at mathematics, and yeah, that's how I found out what integers and factors were. And this is what we do. I'm not the teacher here. The thought of how will I teach my child did not stop me, and does not stop me from choosing homeschooling, because I think I am as much a learner as my child in this process. So in fact, I'm glad I'm learning mathematics now. That's how I see it. So more than teaching, my time is spent on reading with him, learning new things with him, exploring the world with him, and in this process, learning new things with him. So we go on walks, and I have when he looks at some flower, we we both try to identify what tree it is. Uh, we have had we've had instances where we have asked the people in the house instead of only relying on our phone or whatever, since we might not have had it at that moment or may have chosen not to use it. We have asked people and found out what the name of the tree in front of their house is and things like that. I think the world teaches us all of this. Learning is not, you need not necessarily be the only teacher for your child, and you need not be the teacher at all. I mean, the child, many things can be the teacher. Uh, my son is majorly into cranes, and for the past 1.5 months, 2 months, all he does is wakes up and thinks of new ways to make a crane with whatever he has in the house. And so initially we were giving our ideas, and I mean, he asked for it, and he wanted us to sit with him and do it. And whenever I found the time, I could sit and do it with him. And over a point of time, I think I also ran out of ideas, and slowly incidentally, there was somebody who came home, and he was doing this when he suddenly showed them the crane and he had made, and he asked them, can you tell me how else I can make the crane? So there was this time when that person sat with him and they came up with another new idea. So that interested him, and he started going down in our building and trying to build the crane downstairs. And whenever anybody came, he would ask them, okay, can you help me build a new crane? So that, I think that learning, I mean, that process, somebody actually taught him and spoke to him about simple machines. And he taught me about simple machines, in fact. So that those are moments that can happen only in this free to learn environment, and where I don't believe that I am the teacher and I am the only one responsible for imparting my wisdom or knowledge to him. So yeah, so I think it's all about all about spending time with him, talking to him, letting him be, letting him figure out, getting the world involved in his learning. Then the question comes of how much time do I have to spend on this? So before we go into that, I thought we'll do a quick small activity. Could you all please, if you have a note and a paper or something, uh, just jot down how much time you have, or yeah, you don't even have to jot down. You can just ping me approximately how many hours you have to spend with your child apart from work. You can just message me that chat. 2 hours, yes. Radhika says 2 hours. The others, how long do you have? 6 hours, 5 hours? Okay. Radhika, if 4 hours, because we are working from home now. If it is anything less than half an hour, then maybe I would say maybe you should give more time. But otherwise, I think any time that you say, any number that you give, I would say is enough time for your child. Here is as mothers, I mean, I'm just giving this as an aside, as mothers, I am sure you will agree that no matter how much time you spend with your child as mothers or fathers, parents, no matter how much time you spend with your child, you still feel guilty at the end of the day that, you know, your child asked you to come and listen to his story for a minute and you did not have that time. So that is definitely there. But other than that, I would say whatever time is enough. Uh, the more, the merrier, but whatever less you have is okay. Because first, if it depends on what according to you is learning. If learning is something that the child does and you are there to just spend time with him, help him learn, or give him the right resources to learn, then I think you can do that at any given point of time. But okay, let us take that you are somebody who believes that yes, it is important to know to write as soon as my child is before my child is 6 years old. Yes, it is important for my child to understand factorization when he is in 7 years old. I think my child should learn calculus when he is 15, 16 years old. I think my child should learn mensuration when he is 14 years old. Let us assume that you are that kind of a parent. There is no, it is perfectly fine because our beliefs on where we want a child to reach is different. So in that case, I would still say a maximum of in a maximum of 2 months, you will be able to complete the entire year's portions that happens in a school. I am serious. In a maximum of 2 months. Or, okay, take, for example, age 13, 14, 15 and above, maybe a maximum of 4 months, but not more. And those 4 months, a lot of practice or doing the same thing over and again. I'm talking about understanding of a concept. And I will definitely say it won't take more than 2 months. So it is that, I mean, the school does your child, the amount of time the child spends on understanding a concept is very less as compared to sitting and practicing the concept over and over again. So if it is 2 months, then I am sure you can, if you have the entire year to do, instead of finishing it in 2 months, depending on the half an hours and 1 hours and 2 hours and 5 hours that we get each day, we have a broad timeline to finish the portions for the child as we expect it. I think, and I believe, and I'm going to try, and that is what I'm trying to do, is to the importance is to teach the child how to learn on his own. So once the child learns on his own, he understands that there are XYZ ways to learn, and he can choose to learn in any of those ways when there is something that interests him. The second thing that I feel as a parent, our role is to excite him to learn different things, trigger his curiosity, make him want to learn something. So if we just do these two things, I believe the child will learn on his own. And if you are this fantastic parent who can provide him enough opportunities to sit and discuss learning, and once again, I would say discuss learning not just with you, but with people of different opinions, people from different walks of life. The kind of learning that will happen with your child will not in any way uh, will be enormous. Then I'm sure it will just be there. The kind of learning that has to happen will happen, not the kind of learning uh, that is only academic in nature. Um, so yeah, if you are not convinced that uh, you can spend this much time alone is enough to teach your child, then well, you could if your focus is on interest, you could enroll your child at Mango Education's different clubs. that was just an aside. Or If your focus is on academics alone, there are n number of resources online available, and or hire a tutor, any of that. As it is, children in schools go for tuition and learn the same thing at tuition as well. So you could do that as well. Have so that you think structured learning is important, then yes, your child can go to the tuition when you are at work. So those are things. So handling of work and homeschooling in a lot of ways depends on your objectives of homeschooling. And ideally, if you are, I am being a little strong about this here, but it's just a reflection of my personal opinion, is ideally, if you are looking at doing academics primarily as at home as homeschooling, then I would say you might as well put the child in school. Otherwise, I would suggest use the opportunity of the child staying at home to help him expand his horizon to learning beyond just ABCs. Or I think this whole session, my favorite has been calculus. So learning beyond just calculus. Yes. So this is my basic thoughts. Now another question that might come up is, if I am to focus on academics, then how will I make my child sit and spend time learning? Uh, I think the best way is to set up routines. Work on a routine together. Either it is both of you work at the same time while he sits on something, if he is old enough to sit and work on his own, read on his own, or work on some mathematics on his own, or something like that. Let him do that as you are working. That it would give him the idea that both of you are working on something. Or if you think your child is not somebody who sits and learns while you are working, you need to sit with him, then well, when you work, maybe he can do something that he likes to do. And when you are taking a break from work, you can sit with him and he works at that time. So, it's just those 2 hours that you are taking a break from work, or the 2 hours you can spend with your child can be to help him with his academics. So, yeah, the easiest would be, you guys have to figure out a routine for yourself, but a routine is going to help both you and the child in a structured learning process in the long run, definitely. The easiest would be to let him be, talk to him, talk of your experiences, read, go out together, talk to people, explore the world, and learning will happen automatically. I am sure that if you just, the basics of, so I had this friend, I have this friend who is in the US, and she is a coordinator and a teacher, for a head teacher at a school where she teaches for class 11 and 12 physics. And she says that, there are children, there is a child who finds it absolutely difficult to, has absolutely no interest whatsoever in physics, and finds it very difficult to comprehend the concepts, and would much rather spend time on music. And she approached the parents and said, it is perfectly fine if he doesn't study this physics. It's not, he can choose different careers where he need not have physics in his career choice. And the parents were not okay with that. They said it doesn't matter, he has to put in efforts, he has to sit and study. What it is going to achieve, I have no idea. This actually happened to me in a certain way too. I was Um, Even by the time I was in class 8, 9, and 10, I had actually from class 5, I had difficulty with mathematics. But in 10th standard, just before the public exam, just 1 month before the public exam, we had 1 month of holidays, and I would just sit and keep doing the same sums over and over and over again. And I got decent marks in the public exam. And so in 11th and 12th, they said, they as in my family, my friends, everybody said, engineering is the way. And you join the physics, chemistry, math, computer science course. So I thought, okay, maybe I should do that. And I did. And I found math so difficult. I just couldn't get my head around any of the concept. I struggled and struggled. And at the end of class 12, I realized I cannot go through this struggle any longer. And I said, please let me be. I don't want to take engineering for college, for my graduation. And I specifically chose a course which did not have mathematics. I chose psychology, which had only statistics. So it was almost traumatic to have to score, to have the pressure of scoring in something that I simply couldn't understand. I still cannot understand. So yeah, so a child can choose what he wants to learn. It's not just the choice of learning is not going to, uh, destroy his life forever, is what I feel. So, but yes, now we are working from home, so there is a possibility to spend more time with the child. And what about parents who don't work from home? Uh, I know of single parent families who have no choice but to go to office and work, and yet they have chosen homeschooling. Obviously, the child is old enough to remain at home alone. Uh, but until the child was old enough to remain at home alone, the parent spoke to the people at work, and she took him to work with her every single day. So, if your objective is clear, if your belief is strong enough, I think it's just a matter of working out the logistics. Homeschooling may seem daunting, radical, and impractical to many, much less working and homeschooling, but I think it all boils down to what we believe is learning and how we think we can make a difference how we think child can make a difference in his or her own life. Yeah, that's about what I had in mind to share.
Thank you, Deepa. It was a wonderful session. Now we are open to questions. Can you all post your questions, or if you have any question, you can raise your hand and I will unmute you. You can ask your questions to Deepa.
Oh my, no questions. Wow. Was there anybody who was not very convinced about homeschooling and has now changed? Yes, Raj. I think Kavya Radhika has something to say. You might unmute.
Yeah.
Hi, Deepa. Thank you for the insights and your inputs on the whole topic. So, I had a question of when you're a working parent, and I don't want, if I don't, so I have two children. One is currently in grade 4. I mean, he's still continuing with the mainstream schooling, and I'm contemplating unschooling him rather than homeschooling him. And my younger son is in, I mean, technically I enrolled him for in junior KG in the same school, but with the pandemic and the lockdown, I haven't made him go through the online classes because I didn't find it meaningful for a 4-year-old to be sitting in front of laptop for two hours just for the sake of learning, because that I don't think I need to make him go through that. So having said that, that's where I started contemplating homeschooling, unschooling, and I've been doing a lot of research on this and talking to a lot of parents. So I wanted to understand that working parent, unschooling, and how do I keep my child engaged when I am out to work. Today I am at home because of the pandemic and the work from home scenario. So tomorrow when I have to go back to my office, how do I manage his time? Because I don't want to send him to a tutor for a structured learning.
Right. Uh, is there anything more to the question, Radhika?
No, that's about it. How do I manage his time when I am not around and I don't want a structured learning for him?
Okay. Since you are looking at unschooling him, I'm using this statement is why should you structure his time during the day, or why should you manage his time? Uh, this happened when the pandemic struck, and a lot of children, including children in my building who have been going to schools and other places of learning, like some sports or whatever, the parents had a major issue because they didn't know how to occupy the children. The children were equally at loss. When we send them somewhere, usually what happens is there is something given to them to keep them occupied, or they have people around them whom they talk to and keep themselves occupied. If this never happened with my son and with a couple of other friends, homeschoolers, children, because they were, in fact, during the pandemic, my work, I would say, got the time I had to spend on work increased exponentially. Um, and but my child did not have so much of a problem uh, because he was used to occupying himself. This, you may say, a 5-year-old, it is easy to keep himself occupied, when older children might require more social company and things like that. I think the best thing is to talk to your child and find out from your child how he wants to occupy himself or manage himself. There I am sure a child who is capable of discussing unschooling or choosing to be at home will be able to tell you how he wants to manage himself. These are my thoughts on that. Yes, thank you, Radhika. Ambika Badri wants to know about TV and kids. Okay, now that is a very, I would put it as screen time and kids, because it's not just TV anymore, it is how much time they spend on mobile phones as well. So if you are like choosing like Radhika to unschool, uh, so unschooling relies a lot on uh, trusting the child to make his or her own decision. So there have been instances of unschoolers whom I've heard who have spent a lot of time sitting in front of TV for months together. In fact, the entire time sitting in front of TV for months together until they got bored and then switched to other more productive activity. It's like, I don't know how many of you have watched that movie, Annamalai. It's a Tamil movie where Rajnikant movie, for those of you who don't know, where Rajnikant talks of how when he was younger and he wanted to smoke, or he was caught smoking by his father did not say anything to him. He just put Rajnikant in a room full of cigarettes, and he told him, this room is full of cigarettes and you have to smoke it all in through the night, and tomorrow morning, I mean, this is all just for you to spend through the night. Arunachalam, okay, thank you very much. So the next day, after smoking and smoking and smoking and smoking, Rajnikant was tired of it, and he never liked the smell of cigarettes anymore. So yeah, it is a very radical thought process, but so that is one thing about TV. But I am not an unschooler, and how I manage my son's TV time is he has a half an hour TV time a day. The rest of the time he spends enacting whatever he saw on TV, which is mostly Thomas and Friends. It's another routine that we had established. Initially there was a lot of hue and cry about having just half an hour's time, having to switch off when he is watching something interesting, but later on he knew that these were some of the rules that we follow at home. So that's how it is. It's like brushing the teeth. Initially most children would rather stand upside down the whole day rather than brush their teeth, but ultimately they start doing it because they know that cannot be compromised. This is something we took a long time. We had a lot of conversations with him, and now he knows. I mean, he goes and switches off the TV after, now that he knows to see time. So that's how it is for us. Yes, I agree. Arun Kumar says, conversation with kids will not only keep them engaged, but it also helps us rediscover ourselves. Yes, I completely agree. Yes, Ambika. Yes, so that's it, I guess.
Shall I come up?
Deepa,
Shall I come up with my point?
Yes, please,
I'm
Sujata.
Sujata.
Yes, please, Sujata.
See, my son is 16 years. Now, past 3 years, we are doing this homeschooling. It is not exactly unschooling because we are into academics and other things. What at this point, he being a teenager, what I found is like we have gone into undisciplined mode a lot, which we felt like in schooling we had. That's a different thing. We can come back also. Now I'm quite confused. Do I have to come back to the discipline mode, or is it fine if we are not disciplined? In the sense, the timings is just how we feel. It can be anything, anytime. When what I have told is when you feel to study, only that time you study. And I take it for granted also. Sometimes I feel it negative. Sometimes I feel this is fine. So I'm just confused to revive my confident. I'm just asking this question, like, am I in the right path or somewhere I'm going wrong?
Okay. One thing about homeschooling, or in any way being, for want of better word, in any way deviating from what you is mostly followed by people, is that we tend to become unsure of what we are doing, because we have seen some measures of success out of the method followed by a lot of people, and we don't know about the measures of success if from people who are following our method. So that is one reason, actually, homeschooling communities, that is one place where homeschooling communities have helped me, where I have been in, like you, Sujata, I have been in many times unsure of what to do. And everywhere I hear this, which sometimes is frustrating, is you will figure it out. But here I would again stress on the same thing of communication. There is not, with the child, if a 3-year-old can have a conversation with you and tell what is bothering him, or tell how he wants to spend his time, or help you understand why he is frustrated that you did not pay attention to him, I'm sure a 16-year-old will be able to do. I think the primary thing you will have to work on is working on your communication channel between you and your son, and that will open up ideas on whether you should focus on discipline or uh, letting him be. I am sure it may take a lot of time, but if you spend your efforts on that rather than you deciding what you think is the best, I think it will work out better. Did I hope that helped?
Yes, thank you, Deepa.
Thank you, Sujata.
Do we have any more questions? Okay, then I think we are done for the day. Thank you so much, Deepa, and thank you everybody for attending today's session.
Yes. Thank you very much, all of you. And yes, thank you, Charmi.